The neighborhood had always been a tranquil corner of suburbia, each house a mirror to its neighbor, lawns mowed in military precision, and the sidewalks empty, save for the occasional jogger or dog walker. Mine was the house at the end of the cul-de-sac, an unassuming brick structure with a wide porch and a driveway that could accommodate 2 cars with room to spare. Or so I thought. Karen lived 3 houses down, her property marked by a prissy charm that belied the nature within. Her roses bloomed in synchronized perfection, a testament to her iron fist hidden beneath garden gloves. She was the self-proclaimed enforcer of the HOA, a title she wore with the same pride as her crisply ironed blouses. Under her watch, every blade of grass was scrutinized, every hedge trimmed to the exacting standards of her personal code. It started on a Tuesday, that forgettable day of the week when the world is caught in the mundane rhythm of work and routine. I returned home to find Karen's car parked diagonally across my driveway, its red paint gleaming like a cardinal sitting smugly amidst sparrows. A note fluttered under my windshield wiper, a neat script that declared her intent to enforce a newly minted parking regulation, one I hadn't been aware of, nor seen a need for. I took a breath, counted to 10 as I'd learned during one of those mandatory corporate retreats. Peace was a choice, and I chose it deliberately, envisioning it unfurling around me like a protective cloak. In the following days, the note did not depart from its place on my windshield. A flag of conquest. Karen's car, too, remained unmoved, a silent sentinel daring me to challenge her dominion. Each morning, I navigated my car around hers with the precision of a surgeon, a daily dance that left my patience frayed but intact. And so, I let it be. Karen's antics were a storm of teacup proportions. The driveway was an inconvenience, but not an insurmountable one. Besides, the irony of her self-righteous enforcement of unwritten rules was more a source of amusement than annoyance. Yet, irony has a way of ricocheting through life with a potent energy. One evening, as I sat on my porch, watching twilight spill its deep blues across the sky, an idea began to take shape, first as a whisper, then a fully formed thought. The lot next door had been vacant for years, a patch of green lost to time and neglect. I imagined it bustling with cars, a small rebellion in asphalt form, practicality wrapped in an artistic flourish. The plan unfolded with a simplicity that belied its future complexity. I would buy the lot. I would build a parking lot. Not out of spite, but as a testament to creativity over conflict, a solution that allowed me to reclaim my space without a word. The paperwork was uneventful, a series of signatures and nods that moved the world incrementally forward. I pictured the lot transformed, a place where Karen's car would not loom, but instead be one among many, its red dulled by the presence of steel and chrome. And so, Act 1 drew to a close, my quiet defiance a seed planted in fertile ground. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I savored the irony, a gentle echo of laughter in the unfolding dusk. The morning sun slanted through my kitchen window, casting long golden stripes across the table, where the local newspaper lay untouched beside my steaming cup of coffee. I found my gaze drawn, not to the headlines, but to the window, where the sprawling view of manicured lawns and identical homes stood interrupted by the vibrant chaos of my newly acquired parking lot. It was a bold statement of defiance, a practical monument to my quiet rebellion against Karen and her iron-fisted reign over the neighborhood. In the days following my purchase, Karen had intensified her campaign with the fervor of a general preparing for war. The HOA newsletter, once a mundane collection of dates and reminders, now brimmed with a dense thicket of new regulations, each veiled as policy, but all clearly aimed at thwarting my plans. Paint colors were restricted to an absurdly narrow palette. Fences could not exceed a certain height, and parking regulations became a labyrinth of restrictions that even the most dedicated of rule followers would find exhausting to navigate. A citation appeared on my door one morning, fluttering like a bright red flag in the gentle breeze. It accused me of violating unspecified guidelines, the language vague and accusatory. No specific infractions were listed, just an ominous warning that future violations would incur fines. I knew it was Karen's handiwork. Her scrawl of a signature with its overly looped K was unmistakable. As I plucked the citation from its place, I felt a wave of bemusement wash over me. It was almost admirable, the sheer creativity she employed in her attempts to unsettle me. But rather than anger, I felt a curious sense of anticipation, the enjoyment of a game well played where each move was as carefully considered as a chess piece on a board. Karen's next tactic was subtler, shrouded in whispers that floated through the neighborhood like smoke. Rumors of dubious legality and unneighborly conduct swirled around me, painting me as some kind of renegade, a rogue dissenter in the HOA's otherwise immaculate kingdom. The stories varied wildly. I was either a scheming entrepreneur out to commercialize the suburbs or a recluse with a vendetta against community harmony. I caught fragments of these tales in passing, overheard snippets from conversations that faltered into silence as soon as I neared. The irony wasn't lost on me. I, who had moved here for the tranquility promised by uniformity, now found myself at the center of a melodrama worthy of a daytime soap. In the quietude of my backyard, I often mused over my unintentional transformation into the neighborhood's folk hero or villain, depending on whom you asked. It was a role I neither sought nor shunned. I simply existed within it, a constant amidst the ebb and flow of Karen's machinations. The lot next door, once a simple extension of lawn, had become a bustling hive of purpose. Neighbors who had once hesitated to make eye contact now offered amiable nods as they parked, grateful for the convenience I had provided. It was a small victory, perhaps, but one that resonated with me deeply. It wasn't just about parking spaces. It was about carving out a place in a world that tried to dictate the terms of my existence. And in that realization, I found a peculiar kind of peace. At the next HOA meeting, where Karen sat with her usual air of authority, I chose a seat at the back of the room. She glanced in my direction, a thin smile playing on her lips, as if daring me to make the next move. I simply offered a nod, acknowledging the game without conceding to it. The meeting commenced, and as the mundane business droned on, I leaned back in my chair, allowing the chaos of the past weeks to settle into a quiet resolve. Karen would escalate, of that I had no doubt. But for now, in this moment, I relished the calm. The eye of the storm where the winds of change fell still, if only for a brief respite. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway. The crickets were just beginning their evening serenade as I sat on my porch, sipping coffee that had long grown cold. The aroma mingled with the scent of freshly cut grass, a sharp contrast to the faintly acrid smell of engine oil from Karen's SUV lingering across the way. Destruction through obstruction, her vehicle a monument to audacity, blocking my driveway like a smug, silent sentry. Karen's boldness was a strange alchemy of entitlement and ignorance. Her brazen parking habits had been the talk of the neighborhood for weeks, but now it was personal. Her SUV, a chariot of self-righteousness, dared to assume dominion over my little plot of asphalt. But I was a quiet storm, brewing, silent amid the chaos, patiently gathering momentum. Days passed, each one marked by the rhythmic thud of my neighbor's footsteps and the screech of her tires. Each morning, I documented the scene with meticulous care. Photographs cataloged every intrusion, a quiet testament to her trespasses, a diary of defiance, written not with words but with images. Evidence, in its purest form, was often the most eloquent storyteller. And then there was the empty lot next door, a patch of unkempt wilderness, a sanctuary for weeds and forgotten dreams. Its potential whispered to me in the stillness of twilight, a canvas for retribution. It was an invitation I could not refuse. With one stroke of a pen, it became mine. Transforming the lot was an act of quiet rebellion, as much a labor of love as it was a declaration of independence. My heart thrummed with anticipation as bulldozers turned earth, converting potential into purpose. I watched as dusty hues of soil gave way to sleek, inviting asphalt. A parking lot in the heart of suburbia, a sanctuary for the weary traveler, and a haven for the vehicularly displaced. The irony was not lost on me. Karen, in her relentless quest for convenience, had inspired an oasis of parking possibilities. Where she saw a driveway, I envisioned a kingdom. And so, the lot became a refuge, a place where neighbors could park freely, unburdened by the tyranny of arbitrary rules. It was a silent proclamation, a subtle reclaiming of space and sanity. The day of unveiling dawned with a peculiar sort of serenity. The air was heavy with anticipation, punctuated by the soft crunch of gravel as cars began to trickle in. It was a quiet revolution, one parking spot at a time. Karen's SUV, ever the sentinel, stood idly by, a relic of an outdated regime. As the lot filled, I watched from my porch, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over me. Karen's gaze, sharp as shattered glass, met mine across the street. Her disbelief was palpable, a ripple in the suburban calm. There was a brief flicker of words, a moment of distilled realization. She was suddenly, beautifully, wordless. In that silence, the neighborhood exhaled. A collective sigh of relief, a subtle shift in power. The parking lot stood unassuming yet profound, a testament to patience and quiet defiance. I sipped my coffee, now cold again, and smiled. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served with patience, and perhaps a side of irony. The evening sun stretched its tired fingers across the neighborhood, casting long shadows that seemed to linger over Karen's driveway. My driveway, 2 steps away, encroaching on my property like an unwelcome whisper. Her car was there again, as if it had sprouted roots in the asphalt. A monument to audacity. For weeks, I'd marinated in silent frustration, the kind that simmers and stews until it crystallizes into resolve. Karen's car was more than a nuisance. It was a symbol of her self-proclaimed sovereignty over the block. She was queen here, weaving her web of rules and regulations with the HOA as her scepter. But everyone knows, even queens can be dethroned. I took a deep breath, looking at the lot next to my house. Vacant, overgrown, forgotten. It had stood idle for years, a patch of earth with potential waiting beneath its blanket of wild grass. I had watched it like a hawk watches prey, silent, patient, watching for the right moment to strike. The purchase was quiet, paperwork signed with the elegance of a whisper. There was something poetic about how easily land could transfer hands, a silent revolution in ink and stamps. Soon after, a discreet sign appeared. Future home of community parking. Construction was neither loud nor flashy. The hum of machinery during the day, the gentle rumble of progress. A ballet of bulldozers smoothing the ground, concrete pouring like a river given purpose. I kept to the sidelines, a conductor guiding a symphony of change with the flick of a pen. The neighborhood buzzed with curiosity. Eyes watched from behind curtains, questions hanging in the air like unspoken judgments. Karen, I imagined, must have seethed at the sight. I never caught her gaze directly, but I felt it, sharp as a knife's edge. Her domain was being challenged, not with confrontation, but with the quiet rearrangement of landscape and law. The parking lot opened with little fanfare, just a neatly painted expanse with designated spaces. Neighbors trickled in, tentatively parking their cars as if testing an uncertain new world. It was a simple thing, really, a patch of concrete that promised peace of mind, freedom from Karen's reign. One evening, while the sky blushed with the hues of twilight, I noticed her car sitting alone in front of my house, still blocking my driveway. I walked up, casually, as if out for an evening stroll, leaned against the hood, feeling the warmth of sun-soaked metal seep through my jeans. The door opened and she stepped out. Her face was a mask of carefully controlled irritation. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, searching for the right words, the sharpest retort. "Nice weather we're having," I remarked, my voice a calm sea over her brewing storm. Her silence was louder than any insult she could have hurled. For a moment we stood there, the parking lot a silent witness to our unspoken duel. This was no longer about driveways. It was about space, autonomy, the small victories that define lives. She turned away, her retreat deliberate, as if conceding the first of many battles to come. I stayed a moment longer, savoring the air, the taste of quiet triumph. The lot gleamed under the streetlights, a testament to the power of quiet resolutions and careful choices. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming space, mine and the community's, from the grip of a self-appointed monarch. A revolution waged not with words or conflict, but with quiet, steadfast action. My lot, my choice. A declaration of independence embossed in concrete, visible to all who cared to see. After the lot opened, a curious calm settled over our neighborhood like a softening snowfall. The buzz of engines now felt like a gentle hum, a comforting cadence reminiscent of a quaint village market. The parking lot, freshly paved and neatly lined, became a subtle beacon of change. My decision had transformed from a private act of rebellion to a public utility, an unspoken promise of convenience and peace. Cars filled the spaces, their presence a silent testament to the community's endurance and adaptability. Karen watched warily from her window, a fortress of floral curtains and judgment. Her eyes were often on me, a hawk hunting for weakness. But I had none left to offer. I was unyielding, an oak amidst the storm. The HOA meeting that followed was a peculiar dance of decorum and distaste. Karen presided with an air of reluctant respect, her usual dominance diluted by the weight of my unexpected coup. I sat at the back, a silent observer in this theater of mundane power. The neighbors, once a chorus of complaints and compliance, had found their voice. Murmurs of approval echoed through the room, a chorus of nodding heads and shared glances. The parking lot had become a vivid symbol of silent resistance, a grassroots revolution against the petty tyranny of petticoats and bylaws. Karen's gavel was a reluctant drum, signaling an end to the meeting, and, in some ways, to her reign. Her authority had been chipped away, not with hammers, but with heads turned toward new possibilities. She stood there, a relic of a bygone era, her gaze fixed on a future she could no longer predict or control. As I left the meeting, the night air felt unusually crisp, charged with the electricity of change. The stars were brighter, as if celebrating their freedom from the shroud of clouds. I walked home with a newfound lightness, an invincible spring in my step that resonated with the quiet laughter of the universe. Karen's reaction had been a slow unraveling, a tapestry of control unwinding thread by thread. Her attempts to regain her footing were futile, mere echoes of a once commanding voice now lost amidst the chorus of the community's newfound harmony. The neighborhood had been restored, not to a former glory, but to a new harmony where every voice counted. The parking lot was more than just a solution. It was a statement, an unspoken vow of resilience and renewal. In the days that followed, I often found myself standing at the edge of the lot, watching as cars came and went, a silent symphony of shared space and newfound freedom. The asphalt, once a blank canvas, had become a tapestry of community in motion, a testament to the power of a single determined act. Karen, sidelined, watched from her window, a spectator in her own domain. Her power had waned, replaced by the quiet strength of a neighborhood united not by fear, but by a shared commitment to a better tomorrow. And so, life moved on, as life always does, with its gentle rhythms and subtle shifts. The parking lot remained, a constant reminder of what could be achieved when one dared to dream beyond the confines of conformity. In the end, it was more than just a plot of land. It was a promise kept, a vision realized, a victory earned.